Hello and welcome to this video. Now on this video today I want to talk about should you go out and buy the latest console. Now we have the brand new PS5 and the Xbox Series X coming out, and when they come out, is it a good idea to go and buy them straight away? Well, actually it's better to wait. The reason why it's better to wait before you go out and buy the latest console is due to the fact that every time new hardware is produced, you are going to get bugs and errors. So because it's new hardware, we don't necessarily know exactly how that hardware is going to work, and if that hardware is going to be any good. Is that hardware going to have problems? Is there going to be problems within the software? And I recommend waiting as well because of the price. We don't know what the price is going to be of the brand new PS5 and also the Xbox Series X. I don't know if they've actually released information about the price yet for them consoles. I am unsure, but what I do know is if you look at all the other gen consoles, like from the PS3 to the PS4 to the Xbox One, the Xbox One X and all that, the one thing I realised is these new consoles, if you look at problems that have been found with the new hardware, one of the things is that these new hardware, the new hardware itself is kind of just being put out into the wild, and there's a problem with that, which is that if you put out new hardware but you don't actually give that hardware time to be tested, so if you buy, say for instance, the latest console and that console has problems, some of them problems can actually brick your console. Now, I went out and I bought a Xbox 360 on release, and you probably all heard of the Red Ring Death. And I went out and bought an Xbox 360, and I was only able to use it for like, I think, a month before the Red Ring came up, and I was actually quite annoyed because they wouldn't let me have a refund or anything, even though it was still within warranty. And it turned out that the Red Ring of Death was happening on so many consoles that the shop I got it from was actually getting overwhelmed by refunds. And so I started to realise that if you want to buy a games console, the best thing to do is to actually physically wait. Give it time for that console to actually, give me a minute, I need, door's shut, no, I've only got, right, so it's give it time for you to, did I come past the weapon there? Yeah, I did. So, that was saying, I got a bit distracted by the game. Give it time, allow the hardware to be out in the wild, give it time for Sony and Microsoft to both actually fix any problems that may be found in the hardware. Allow that hardware to just sit out in the wild for a while, because problems are going to be found. There's going to be errors that are going to be found. They're going to find things that are really kind of, where do I have to go? Oh. They're going to find things that are problems either with the hardware or software problems. Now, this is the same for any new hardware, including graphics cards, computers, motherboards. When they make new hardware, they usually put it through rigorous testing because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if you're going to find that there's huge problems with overheating, or something that you've set up within that console or within that device or computer isn't actually functioning the way that it was meant to. And it's kind of all due to testing and getting the testing down. Now, pretty much what I have actually seen through my time working when I was doing IT and PC repairs, as well as working as a game developer and getting to use test build systems and dev systems and all that lot, was that don't rely on the hardware for a test build and think it's going to be the same as the hardware in the actual device. Now, sometimes I would find that the hardware that's in a test build was kind of different in a way of memory, CPU, but usually the graphics chip was the same as the actual console that was going to be released, or the actual device that was going to be released. And I think the reason is, it's like they build them systems and make them so that they can work throughout them situations, but it's all about trying to get that balance between the hardware and the software. And that's a problem with when you're releasing a new console or a new bit of gaming kit. You know, that also goes for if you're releasing, say for instance, sorry, I'm getting shot. If you're releasing something like, say for instance, you're releasing a new graphics card. Now, they go through rigorous testing, but when it comes to games consoles, you're not just getting one thing. You're not just getting a brand new graphics card, you're getting a brand new gaming system. It's basically a brand new computer. And that's one thing that I like about the new consoles, is that they go through the route of, they change every aspect to make it next gen. But this leaves us with problems, serious problems. It leaves us with a problem of stability, hardware problems, software problems, sometimes even firmware problems. And sometimes the problem with the firmware isn't actually down to the actual console, but it's down to the drivers that individual chips on the board need. Because you have to remember, the console has wireless, the console has different chips from different manufacturers, and in order for them to work together, firmware has to be used. And that can be somewhat a bit challenging, because if you make a new console and you're working on it, you've got all this new hardware, new software, you know, you've got new chips, new APUs and all that lot, new RAM, because not all RAM is equal. Like, you've got DDR2, DDR3 and so on. But when it comes to gaming, it's kind of more difficult when building a system, and this is kind of the thing that I find kind of scary when it comes to buying a new console. You don't know what the problems are going to be. You don't know where them problems are going to lie. You don't even know if your new console is going to work out the box. And that's why I'm doing this video, because I actually believe that people should not rush out, unless you're somebody who's willing to take the risk. Don't rush out and buy the PS5 or the Xbox One at release. Wait a couple of months, allow it to be out in the wild, allow the developers to fix any technical problems that they find, and patch any bugs or any technical problems with firmware or with the operating system. Allow them to fix problems that could potentially break your new expensive gaming system. And I believe that if people take that into consideration, it can actually stop a lot of problems down the line. Like when I bought the Xbox 360 at launch, and I can definitely tell you, I bought that at launch and it lasted me, I think it was a month. I think it lasted me a month, and then after a month of playing it, oh, I've got no ammo there. After a month of playing it, and I wasn't playing it non-stop, you know, I wasn't playing it religiously, I was just playing it, chilling out, enjoying playing it, and just having fun playing a game that was absolutely awesome. I think it was Call of Duty that I was playing on it. And what happened was, I was playing the game, still got no ammo, so I was playing the game, and I ended up finding that it was just going funny. I was getting like strange anomalies on the screen, it was juddering, it was freezing, it was just going kind of weird, and I'm like, because I don't usually, like, I don't really take notice of problems when they come up because you're so focused on the game. It's only when it actually starts to affect the game that you start to notice it. And what happened was, I was playing the game, and all of a sudden, where the light bar was a circle, it just went all red, and the console went off. It made a strange noise, and it was just like the worst thing ever. It was the worst thing ever because it went off. It was like, I felt kind of, I felt terrible. And I know of a lot of gamers who felt the same way, who felt terrible because you pay all that money, and then your console that you have just paid a vast amount of money for ends up being near enough bricked because of a problem that has happened due to a complication between either the hardware or the software, or both. You know, sometimes it's all to do with the integration within that, and you have to take into consideration there is a big integration between the hardware and between the software. You know, the software is pretty much telling the hardware what it wants it to do. You set up your Wi-Fi, the software is controlling that Wi-Fi in order for you to get a signal and actually do, you know, get online. So it's crackers, and it's just more beneficial to actually wait a couple of months before you purchase a new games console, the next gen just released, because the last thing you want, guys, is to buy a PS5 or an Xbox Series X and find that actually there's so many problems with that console that you're basically, you've got a console which you can't use. Now, it's devastating when that happens. So yeah, it is absolutely devastating to have a console that is just not working. Now, if you've had a games console that you've got, you know, day one release, and you've had problems with it, you know, put it in the description. A lot of people have had problems with it. I remember my first time I went and got a PlayStation 3, and seriously, I got it. I was playing it, and I don't know what happened. I was playing it, and all of a sudden, I just got this kind of strange. It was a strange kind of weird buzzing noise coming from the PS3, and so yeah, that was saying it had a weird buzzing, and I'm like thinking to myself, well, is this a problem with the fans? And it was getting hot. It was just like a constant weird kind of buzz, and it was just like I wasn't getting anything really. You know, performance wise, it was like, it was juddering a bit. And this was the original first day release of the PS3 fat version, and I tell you, after playing it for a couple of hours, I started to notice that well, that makes it interesting. I started to notice that I was getting kind of a strange, like, weird smell coming from the back of the PS3 fat version. And I was like, well, it doesn't smell of circuitry, it was like a very sweet smell. And then it started getting rancid, the smell was getting really bad. It was smelling kind of plasticky, and it was like I was hearing pops and clicks all across the board, and to the point where I ended up going over to turn it off, and the entire top of the case, when I put my hand on it, actually sunk inwards. The console was that hot, the lid went in, it just sunk in to the shape of my hand, and I ended up getting a few burns on my hand. And so I opened it up, and it turned out that the fan had actually failed. And the thing is, there is protection inside the console that protects it from overheating, but that had seemed to have failed as well. So the console was just getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and for some reason it never turned itself off. And so I sent it to somebody to get it fixed, somebody who repairs consoles. And this was before I started doing console repair and stuff. And you know what? They actually said it wasn't even a hardware problem. All the fan was working fine, everything else was working fine. What it was a glitch in the actual operating system of the PS3, the original. And he had seen this glitch a few times where the console just didn't actually detect or work. It didn't do anything, you know. He's had problems where the console was actually working for a bit and then going off. Problems where the consoles would stop reading Blu-ray, stop loading games. And yes, the next update for the PS3 original, the fat version, did fix that problem. It fixed that problem and it solved it. And it shows that it doesn't necessarily have to be the hardware that is faulty. Sometimes it can just be a simple thing as a line of code that isn't actually like doing what it's meant to do. You know, I've written operating systems before. I used to write my own Linux operating system, and I used to do that as just a hobby. And I actually found that if you put the wrong thing, or you make one small mistake, like you put something there like a backspace or something, or you write something in that kind of you don't realise you spelt wrong for a driver or something, like to integrate, not as a driver, but to integrate a driver to allow it to interact with that driver in order to interact with the hardware, so it's accessing. You'll actually find that it can cause problems, and these problems are kind of strange. Sometimes it can just be the console making a strange noise through the speaker. Sometimes it can be things inside not working, like for instance the fan didn't turn on because the console, the actual chip that's meant to turn the fan on, some reason was not actually working in my one. And he even said to me, this bloke, he was like, well, I've seen this before, you know, it's a problem, but it's very rare. It's a very rare problem. And that to me was like, well, if it's a rare problem, why hasn't it been fixed? Why haven't they fixed this problem? And that's the thing with that's the thing with brand new releases, brand new games consoles, you know, first day releases. You're going to get problems, you're going to get errors, you're going to get you're gonna get problems, you're gonna get errors, you're gonna get things that are not working right because it's brand new hardware, you know, it's just came out. And so waiting for say a month or two, you're letting the waters settle, you're letting them be out there in the wild, you're letting gamers basically hammer hell out of them, and you're making sure that if there is any problems, you aren't wasting your money by buying a console that may actually brick itself due to a technical problem that the manufacturers didn't know about. And the other thing is, on first day release as well, you will find that the console costs an absolute load of money. They cost a lot until the water settles, the hype settles, and then you'll find that actually, did that just grab my grenade? You have it. Oh yes. So you'll find that once the waters are settled and the hardware is being out there, it's being tested. Because if you want to thoroughly test a games console, you know, give it to a load of gamers. We'll test it to half of its life. I think that's the same with a load of different consoles actually. Like, and that's something that people don't really understand, but during rigorous testing of a device, that device is tested in a way which is kind of how the manufacturers want you to use it, but we don't necessarily use that hardware the same way as we possibly should, if that makes sense. Like, there's times where I've been playing a game and I've been trying my hardest to just get more out of it, you know. So I've been like pushing the graphics, and this is on PC where I've bought a brand new graphics card, and I've been just pushing the graphics to as high as they'll go. And then you're like, well, it's not going as high, so what do? You then go online, you download a patch that unlocks the card so you can basically overclock it, and you find that actually your brand new card has a safety protection system built in to save the card from damage, and you can damage the card. And there has been things about people getting new consoles, they've had problems with them, they haven't lived up to their expectations, just as a bug, and so they've tried to fix that bug themselves by either modding or adjusting or just pretty much doing things to that console which the manufacturers will be like, hell no, don't do that, that's not what we made this console for. And I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. If it does, you know, then you understand where I'm coming from. Like, it's a waste of money going out and buying a new console on day one when we don't know what the problems are going to be, what bugs are going to be there, and that's the part of it. If you don't know what the bugs are, if you don't know what the hardware faults are going to be, you could end up wasting a lot of money on a console that is just going to be bricked. So hopefully this has helped. Hopefully, like, this is kind of giving you some like word of thought so you can actually think about it before you go out and purchase. Think about the pros and cons. Is this new console going to actually have problems? Which most likely yes. Is this new console worth it at the moment with the price and the fact that it hasn't been tested out in the wild, and there could be problems that could actually damage the console? So yeah, I'm just trying to find my way over there. I'm stuck. So yeah, it's just like that really. Like, is it worth? You know, is it worth paying the money at the moment? At the moment, most likely, it's probably worth just to hold off. You know, it's probably worth to hold off until you actually know for a fact that any bugs or hardware faults have been fixed, and then getting it. And this also means that if you wait a couple of months, you can get it cheaper, to the point that you can also afford a new game as well. So that's my thoughts on that. You know, if you have any thoughts on it as well, like how you go and buy your consoles, do you actually buy it on the first day release, do you actually wait, then drop it in the description below. You know, it's something that's interesting to know about. And yeah, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and there'll be more videos from me again soon. Until then, bye.